We have Nora on board. She'll be your first mate and tour guide today.
Howdy. Howdy.
So we are a Coast Guard inspected vessel, so we do have life jackets, and they're located in the 2 white benches midship, up forward in this middle hatch, and there's more in the forward cabin. You don't have to wear them, you just need to know where they are. If you guys are walking around the boat, feel free to do so. Just don't lean on the lifelines, especially the gated areas. They do come undone, and we don't want to do a man overboard drill today. We do have a bathroom on board. It's up forward here in the cabin. The stairs are very steep though, so treat it like a ladder and go down backwards. It's a marine head, so it's a little different. After you're done, you're going to close the lid, pump the handle up and down 10 times the flush. 10 times. There are instructions on the wall if you do forget. We have complimentary water and iced tea in the back cooler and through the faucet back there. You folks can help yourself to those. And Nora will be around with an ice cold pitcher of water as well throughout the trip. So again, welcome aboard, guys, and let's get underway.
Since they have a bathroom on.
You can walk around back.
Are you guys visitors? Well, we're from Woodstock, Connecticut, so not far from here. Close, yeah.
Yeah, we come down for the Winterfest in February a lot. So we decided to try it actually during the summer. We like it better in the winter.
Absolutely.
Less people and it's not quite so hot. And we like warm, you know? Warm.
Charter back here. This is nice. Right? Are you guys all together?
No.
But you will be by the time you're We'll go out for chowder later. Can I offer you guys some water? It's good for you. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Keep it going. Water. Absolutely. Can I offer you water? You want me to fill up your bottle? Let me know. There you are. How about you, my dear? Sure. Come on. Oh, here you go. You figured it out. This is like... Yeah, I love it. You're like, you guys need anything before I start talking?
Ribeye steak.
Oh, well, good. Perfect. So in an hour and 15, right? Right, a lobster? We'll start pulling up to the trap.
So guys, again, welcome aboard the RumRunner 2 and welcome to Newport, Rhode Island. We are the sailing capital of the world. Looking around, you can see we have quite a few boats here in Newport. Between the moorings and the marinas, on a busy summer weekend, we'll hold up to about 2,000 boats. Right now, to put things into perspective, we're about 2/3 capacity. First highlight on the tour is coming up on our left. You're going to see that brown church steeple with the gold cross on top. That's called St. Mary's Church, and that's the church that Jacqueline and John F. Kennedy got married in 1954. So we're coming up to our version of Rodeo Drive on our left here. As the summer progresses, the yachts get bigger and bigger. These yachts are privately owned, but they're corporately owned on some level. So when the owner's not using them, they'll charter them out for a week at a time. You might have to sell your house first, though. The price starts at about $100,000. Motor around the harbor. We like looking at the boat names. Some are a combination of people's children's names and some are nautical themed. Like this boat right off our left, Shaken, Not Stirred, Not in the nautical sense. Our favorite though is a little fishing boat and it's called Silence of the Clams. We have a few local interesting boats in the harbor today. The first one's right off our right. You see the White Hull sailboat with the 2 wooden masts? That's called White Hawk, and she is privately owned. Very interesting though. She has a marble fireplace on board. 2 things you don't want on a wooden boat, right? Added weight. See an unusual building with the clear walls. That's called IRIS, International Yacht Restoration School. And the students in there are working on an 18th century schooner by the name of the Coronet. And that building is open to the public, so you can go in there and check out their progress here at the old wooden shipbuilding. Green and white tugboat. It's called the Wallace Foss. It's one of the oldest boats in the harbor, built in 1897. She's over 100 years old. She was a working tugboat in the Seattle area, but a local couple purchased her and sailed her over here. They converted to a liveaboard yacht and lived on it for a few years, but it's up for sale now if anyone's interested. side on our right, you're going to see this motorboat called Perrin. She's a private liveaboard now, but originally she was an Alcatraz prison ship. That very well could be Al Capone's last ride.
Alright, you guys, as Jay mentioned, my name is Nora, and as we make our way towards Brendan Cove, we're going to be picking up the mic for a little bit. I want to point out our first lighthouse along the tour. It happens to be the home of my hero here in Newport. This little white building on the rock just off the port bow here. It's called the Light Lighthouse. Its keeper in the mid-1800s was a man named Jose Lewis. He actually suffered a stroke and became wheelchair bound, but very fortunately, he had taught his 15-year-old daughter, Ida, how to stand a proper watch. When her father passed away, that little girl was officially appointed lighthouse keeper by the city of Newport. She served as keeper for nearly 50 years, but where she gets her fame is that she was credited with saving 18 lives. Now, some sources actually say upwards of 35 lives, but she's very humble. She never sought credit. That's why the number varies. She was also 4'8", maybe 100 pounds sopping wet and rescuing grown sailors. It's perhaps why not everybody admitted to a heroic rescue from little Ida Lewis. But word did reach Washington, D.C., and President Grant presented her a medal in person. Susan B. Anthony twice praised the heroism of Ida in her journal, and that little girl became the youngest, but also first female lighthouse keeper in the United States. That's why if you look up on that Club Burgee, the red triangular flag up there, you can make out 18 white stars. That's 1 star for each life she rescued. Quite the heroine here in Newport. This place is now known as the Ida Lewis Yacht Club in her honor. These are mansions down here in the cove. These are just summer cottages. They're only meant to be lived in for about 2 months out of each year. All built at the turn of the century, before personal income tax, before the stock market crash, and before the 1938 hurricane. The first estate that you're looking at, with the green and white awning, is called Harbor Port. Built in 1890 for John Nicholas Brown, whose great-great-grandfather helped found Brown University. The last John Brown to live there was one time Under Secretary of the Navy. And in 1988, that beautiful estate actually turned over to the New York Yacht Club for about $4.5 million, rather a gift. So now looking at is the Newport station of the New York Yacht Club. Another lovely summer cottage off the port bow here. The estate with all the chimneys is called Bonnie Crest. Built in the 1920s, took years to complete, fashioned as a summer cottage for Bonnie and Stuart Duncan. Now, as it turns out, Stuart was actually chairman of the board for Lee and Perrin's Worcestershire sauce, of all things. So if you look at those chimneys, you're going to notice that each one has a slightly different design. That's because they were all designed to look like the early, more ornate bottles of Worcestershire sauce. Each one of those chimneys is attached to a fireplace that can hold a baby grand piano. And the famous story about the estate is actually about one of Bonnie's parties. It's often used as an example of the Gilded Age, and that's because Bonnie held a party for 100 of her closest friends. They all sat at one extremely long marble dinner table in her ballroom, but everyone was shocked because instead of putting flowers in the center of the table, Bonnie arranged sandboxes. Her guests thought that was pretty tacky on her part. But at the end of the dinner, Bonnie presented each one of her 100 guests with a miniature silver pail and shovel designed by Tiffany. Said, all right, you guys, I know you've been wondering what these boxes are about. Go ahead, dig in the sand. Whatever you find, you can keep as your party favor. And as they dug, they got more and more bashful because they found diamonds, emeralds, rubies, and pearls. The other lovely summer cottage coming up off the port side of the estate that's half stone and half shingle. It's called Beachbound for the beech trees that surround it. It reopened in 1910 for the Burton family. They made boxcars for the railroad industry. Now, notoriously, the Mr. and Mrs. couldn't agree on anything, and that included on the style of home. Shows She Star on the left with the Swiss style, He Star on the right with the Scottish castle, and their architects met in the middle. Now, it is difficult to believe, but after the 1938 hurricane, these homes were entirely abandoned for decades. It wasn't until the late 60s that realtors started to pick them up and turn them into luxury condos. So both Bonnycrest and Beachbound are condominiums today. This estate, however, is an exception. The estate on the rock right here is called Beacon Rock, built in 1891 for Commodore Edwin D. Morgan, who's a relative to J.P. Morgan of Morgan Guaranty Trust in New York. For many years, this is home to the sculptor Felix de Welden. He's the man that made the bronze statue of the Marines raising the flag at Iwo Jima. But a local attorney acquired this estate about 20 years ago, so actually to this day, this estate remains a private residence. Very unique landscaping as well, all done by Frederick Olmsted, the same man who designed Central Park. I'm sure many of you have heard Newport being referred to as the sailing capital of the world. We're very proud of that title. It all starts over here, that little green building with the red barn doors. It's all part of Sail Newport. And their primary mission, teaching kids to sail. We started teaching kids to sail here in Newport around the age of 6 years old on a tiny boat called the Optimist. This is the boats that you guys are looking at off the port side there, sort of with like floating bathtubs. Great way to learn as a kid. Those boats are unsinkable. You could saw them in half and they would still float. But they do tip over pretty easily with a good puff of breeze, so all the kids are given swim tests before they join the camp. Certainly no shortage of future Olympic sailors here in the city by the sea.
Over there is a Newport for college credit.
That's why.
We're on 22-foot double sailboats. It wasn't those little things. That was even further ago. We sailed on the little boats. I got certified. I got certified at Sail Newport, but I don't know if it's any good anymore.
I got the pool for only so long.
Large granite block structure you guys are looking at off the port side is Fort Adams. That's the largest coastal masonry fort in the country. It was built right after the War of 1812. It was equipped with more than 450 cannon in 3 tiers. It could also hold more than 2,000 officers and enlisted men. It was often described as a virtual death trap for anybody approaching it. It did turn over to the state in the 60s. They offer a really cool tour here where the guides will hand you a flashlight so you can explore the miles worth of underground tunnels that go out through the back portion of the property. But I imagine some of you have been here already, out here on this front lawn. This is where we host the very famous Newport Folk and Jazz Fest each summer. You guys can see them setting up the folk festival right now. On Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, there'll be thousands of people on that front lawn listening to music. But better yet, hundreds and hundreds of boats anchored right here, listening to the music without a ticket.
So we just left Newport Harbor, entering the East Passage of Narragansett Bay. Narragansett Bay is the second deepest channel in the U.S., second to the Puget Sound, and we'll see depths out here up to 200 feet right near the shoreline. Now I must give you a friendly reminder that we are on an open boat, convertible if you will. So that sea breeze pick up a little bit. Might encounter some boat wake or chop, so we might get a little sea spray on board. Won't be bad on a day like today, probably dry by the time we get back. But if you guys are concerned about the sea spray, keep an eye on me. When I touch down, that's when you're
history department. Stayed in Narragansett Farm for 5 weeks.
Wow. Well, there you go. So now you know the area.
I know the area a little bit.
I love that. Well, do you guys want a photo all together? Want me to take a photo of all of you? Here we go. If you guys sit by this flag, I can get the Newport Bridge, the flag, I can make it look super, cinematic. We just approached one of Newport's most famous estates. Up the vast lawn there, the enormous estate that you're looking at is all part of Hammersmith Farm. It was built in 1890 for John Auchincloss, handed down several generations. And when Hugh Auchincloss married Janet Bouvier, that became the childhood home for Jacqueline Bouvier. When Jackie married then Senator John F. Kennedy at St. Mary's Church right in downtown Newport in 1953, this is where their wedding reception was held for 1,500 of their closest friends. This later became JFK's summer White House. To the left of the main estate, we have the windmill-style home that was originally built as a summer guest house, but it wasn't long before it became Jackie's childhood playhouse. And then to the right of the main estate, we have the little boathouse with a dock. It actually might look familiar to you. That was featured in the original Great Gatsby, starring Robert Redford and Mia Farrow. Summer cottage, the brownstone estate with all the chimneys that you guys are looking at off the port side is called, or was originally called Shamrock Cliff. Built for Quan Hutton, who was a railroad tycoon, credited with designs and materials of railroads all over the country. Now it's known as Ocean Cliff. It's a hotel timeshare resort. Very popular for weddings and parties, and even the occasional high school prom. Gorgeous public restaurant there called the Safari Room, right out there on that front lawn. And the other very famous summer cottage for you guys. This is Castle Hill. Originally the summer cottage for Alexander Agassiz, who was a marine biologist and a mine operator. This is actually where he had one of America's first saltwater aquariums. He had a windmill on the lawn to siphon water from the bay and move it up to the fish tanks. Today this is a commercial inn. It's known as the Inn at Castle Hill. But the best part about it, those Adirondack chairs are waiting for you. This place is open to the public. You don't have to spend the night to enjoy the property. Just come over here, grab a drink at their bar and grill, sit in those Adirondack chairs and watch the sun set over Jamestown. Your cameras out yet, now just might be the time to do so. We're coming up to the most photographed lighthouse in all of southern New England. You'll see this lighthouse on every single postcard here in Newport. It's the Castle Hill Light. Now the reason this lighthouse is so picture perfect, it was built on the property owned by Alexander Agassiz. You can imagine when the government asked to build a lighthouse in the backyard of his mansion, he had a couple concerns about the project, and that's why the lighthouse is so short. It's only 34 feet tall, and that's because Agassiz didn't want to see it blinking from his bedroom window. It's also made out of granite blocks, so it beautifully blends right on in with the landscape. And the lighthouse is actually marking the deepest part of the bay. Right here, directly off this shoreline, it immediately plunges to 200 feet in depth. That lighthouse is also marking the demarcation line between inland and offshore waters, so we're officially leaving the Narragansett Bay. If you guys want to kick back and relax, we'll have you in Bermuda in 36 hours.
So guys, as we motor across the bay, I want to tell you a little bit about the boat you're on today. So this boat was actually built in 1929 in Bayonne, New Jersey by the Elko Company, and its original purpose was to smuggle alcohol during Prohibition. Now, Prohibition was the 18th Amendment that stated you could not purchase or sell alcohol within the U.S., and that included up to the territorial boundary 3 miles offshore. Oddly enough, it did not mention anything about consumption. So as personal stashes dried up, people started making their own backyard stills and making bathtub gin. But the problem with these products is they usually cause illness, blindness, or even death. So a very intelligent man named Bill McCoy sailed up to Canada, purchased the real alcohol, sailed back down, anchored just 3.5 miles offshore. He did nothing wrong, he could not be arrested. People in their personal boats would go out to Bill and buy the alcohol directly from him. He made so much money he built more boats. Eventually he had an entire fleet working from the Northeast to the Carolinas. This was known as RumRunner. You guys heard the saying, the real McCoy comes from Bill. You can imagine Coast Guard be a little upset seeing all those boats just 3.5 miles out there. So they extended the boundary to what it is today at 12 miles. And that's when boats like this came into play. This is called a contact boat. It would speed out there, pick up the contraband, and speed stealthily back in. Of course, while being chased and shot at by the Coast Guard. Back then she looked a little bit different. She was painted flat black to blend in with the foggy nighttime environment. She had no canopy, handrail, or flagpole. She was essentially a high-speed flatbed truck on the water. Up here at the helm had a laid-back steel windscreen to deflect bullets. And its main features were its engines. It had 3 500 horsepower Liberty aircraft engines, capable of doing about 40 knots, one of the fastest boats back on the water back then. Unfortunately, we do not have those engines anymore. However, we do have 2 350 horsepower twin diesels, and the boat still moves pretty quick. So, you guys hang on to your hats, your drinks, anything you don't want to fly overboard. We're going to pick up the speed a little bit, see how fast we can get back up.
I just want to put things in perspective for everybody. If you look over the starboard or the right-hand side, what you guys are looking at is Newport. That's all and Portsmouth. But if you look off the port or the left-hand side, as far as the eye can see, what you're looking at is not the mainland. This is another island. It's called Jamestown. It's the 3rd largest island in the state. Now, technically, this island is called Connecticut Island, but Connecticut sounds a lot like Connecticut, and there's only one town over here, so to avoid confusion, locals call this place Jamestown. It's a lot different from Newport, though. In fact, there's only one hotel, a handful of restaurants. There's only one traffic light on this entire island, but there's some really gorgeous state parks. Jamestown is their fair share of those summer cottages as well. Off the port side, the beautiful estate with the giant bell tower on top. That's called Horsehead, built for members of the Lippincott family. If you have any teachers or students on board, you might know that name, Lippincott. It produces educational and medical textbooks. You guys are also getting a great view of the state park, Fort Wetherell. Very popular for cliff jumpers in the summer months. Some of these jumps are upwards of 50 feet in height. The city, in their wisdom, decided to warn kids not to jump off these rocks, so they put a big sign next to the jump spot saying, "Don't jump." That's
Very
where all the
dangerous.
kids hang your towels. But these coves that we're coming up to are also very popular for scuba diving. The water in these coves is upwards of 80 feet deep, directly next to the shore. might want to get your cameras out for this next estate, recently dubbed the most interesting home in all of southern New England, the House on the Rocks. So this estate is actually known as Clingstone. It was built in 1906 for Joseph Wharton, founder of the Wharton School of Business in Pennsylvania. He just wanted a nice little summer getaway, and he loved the property until the hurricane of 1938 came through. Without warning, 40-foot waves are driven by 140-mile-an-hour winds. Waves are crashing over the roof of that estate. And Mrs. Wharton, Joseph Wharton's wife, was trapped in that house by herself during that storm. Now you can imagine she was terrified, but she kept her wits about her, and what she did was tie the windows and doors open. That allowed the water to surge through the house. Then she hid in the closet on the second story. Just as the roof came off the building, that's when the waves and wind calmed. Everyone was shocked that the house clung to its stone, so it became known as Clingstone. And yes, believe it or not, Mrs. Wharton did survive. But when her kids came to pick her up the next day, she said, "Thanks so much for rescuing me. I will never step foot in that house again." It sat completely abandoned after that until 1963, and that's when the current owner picked this home up in an auction for $3,600. It's totally off the grid. The owner's family still spends a great deal of time out there. The city of Jamestown to this day wants absolutely nothing to do with this property, so the owner pays no city taxes. And you can actually rent that place out either by the week or for parties for significantly more than what he paid for it in the first place.
So guys, we have a lot of America's Cup history here in Newport. Specifically the 12 meters. They raced right after World War II all the way up until 1983 until we lost it to Australia. But we have a 12 meter right behind us. There's a few of them. US 21 there, the Red Hull sailboat. That's called American Eagle. That's the boat that Ted Turner purchased and he sailed around the world, trained on. He won it on a different boat called Courageous. If you look off to our right, you'll see another 12 meter heeling over. US 16, that is Columbia. That is the first 12 meter to ever win the America's Cup.
right now, otherwise known as the Newport Bridge. 2.2 miles in length, making it longer than the Golden Gate Bridge, if you want to brag about it. Built between the years of 1965 and 1969, came with a price tag $65 million. Now that was a lot of money back in its day. In fact, that bridge was the second highest government expense of the year, second to putting a man on the moon. The reason for that price tag has to do with its center span. From the water up to the center point of the bridge, that's 200 feet high. Built that high to allow aircraft carriers to pass beneath it and move their way to the Navy base. Changed a lot of things here in Newport, and it changed the world. This little lighthouse that we're coming up to, just off the port bow here. As it heads up, this little lighthouse is my favorite part of the tour, the Rose Island Lighthouse. Many call her the little lighthouse that could. The lighthouse built in 1869, ran for 100 years until 1969, but that's when the Newport Bridge was completed. So that bridge has a billion lights on it, and the lighthouse had one. So it was immediately declared obsolete, and it was abandoned. It sat completely empty for more than 10 years to nothing but weather damage, vandalism, and the birds. Nobody wanted this place anymore, so the next plan was to bulldoze this entire island. In the 1980s, they were going to build a marina and 250 condos out here on this 18-acre island. Yikes. So needless to say, we're incredibly fortunate we are not looking at those condos today, and that's because the non-profit, the Rose Island Lighthouse Foundation was formed. It was founded in the 1980s by this really feisty lady named Charlotte Johnson. She came out here with hundreds of locals. They all brought their bed sheets. And what they did is they held their bed sheets up, they stood arm to arm, and they wrapped around the entire perimeter of the island. Created this huge fabric wall for Rose. Created enough publicity, enough public support to save the entire island. So a really triumphant story there. And to this day, the Rose Island Lighthouse Foundation is still going strong. They're still taking care of this place. The best part is you can too. You can spend the night or the entire week out here in this little lighthouse, and you're trained to become a lighthouse keeper. It's a really unique experience. You get waterfront views of every single window, your own 18-acre island. Secret is it's about a third of the cost of staying in downtown Newport, so it's totally something to check out. I do have to admit, you guys, the reason that I love this little lighthouse so incredibly much is because Charlotte Johnson, that feisty lady who saved it, she's my aunt. Really incredible lady. And this is where I grew up as a kid. So I caused a lot of trouble on this 18-acre island, as you can imagine. And no joke, the only reason I actually have this job on this boat today is because 6 years ago I was standing on the dock right there and I really needed a ride to town. But I knew the RumRunner passed 6 times a day. The joke's on them though, because I just didn't get off the boat. So go out and visit. We offer tours in the summertime. Just take the Jamestown Newport ferry out there. Or go to roseisland.org to book your stay in the lighthouse 365 days out of the year.
you if nobody does it.
Right, exactly. People are like, oh yeah, there's a 3-year wait list. I'm like, there's not. Please go out. You guys doing good? Actually, if you go to right next door to our, there's a, it's called like a 12-meter charter, like, and they take care of all of America's. So all the America's boats are privately owned, but then they're all under that umbrella of like 12-meter charters. And if you talk to those guys, they'll talk your ear off about things. So have an outline. Ray's like, my phone's ringing. But it's great. That's what he goes for. Yeah, and also we just talk down to the boats, like saying hi and
She says it's real easy to get a spot at the Rose Island Lighthouse. Rose Island Lighthouse. Spend the night.
Yeah, I said
The Smithsonian Channel claims that the waiting list is 2 years long.
One last little lighthouse on the tour for you guys off the starboard side. We have the Newport Harbor Light. Not the most famous lighthouse here in Newport, but our place in history is unchallenged as the first beacon to guide mariners into the Newport Harbor. This lighthouse sits on an island known as Goat Island. This island did get its rather adorable name back in the colonial days when locals would row their goats out here to graze. Gurneys decided to embrace the tradition of keeping goats on the island. They just reintroduced 2 goats. They live in a little pen on the west side of the island in a miniature version of the Marble House. And appropriately, the goats are named after the Vanderbilts. They have Cornelius Goat and William Goat, but Billy Goat for short. Off the port side, a very historic section of Newport. All of these beautiful wooden homes on the waterfront were built for very wealthy captains during the colonial days. At that time, Newport was a major trading port. We rivaled Philadelphia, New York, and Boston as a dominant port in the Northeast, with our major export being rum. So these captains would go down to southern seas for months, sometimes years at a time, but when they returned to Newport, they would frequently bring a pineapple with them. They would take that pineapple, they would spear it on a fence post outside. There was a clear sign they had been somewhere south, but they were now home. Come inside, have a glass of rum, enjoy the stories of the journey. And that's how the pineapple became the symbol of hospitality here in New England. As we squeak underneath the Goat Island Causeway, that's going to bring us to our last point of interest. The Newport Shipyard, oldest working boat yard in town. They don't build boats here anymore, but they do service them, which is why we routinely see yachts in here more than 200 feet in length.
Isn't that the Australia?
New Zealand? No, that's Bermuda. Bermuda.
What can I do for you right here?
Oh, well, thank you. I would like to know how we get to the lobster shack.
The Newport Lobster Shack right there. All you have to do, our dock is right here. You just walk down this way. You take a left at the Marriott and walk straight down.
Okay, so left of the Marriott.
Yep, left at the Marriott. And the lobsters will blow your mind. They also have a thing called lobster bites or something. It's deep fried lobster chunks, and it's heaven. It's heaven.
Wait, don't go anywhere.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank
Well,
you.
you know what? You're so sweet.
Thanks a
And you
million.
made it really nice. So enjoy.
That is incredible. Oh, well, you just made my day. Thank you. Thanks a million.
So
I'll
much.
put it in my little basket. Thank you, you guys. Thank you.
Don't give me dirty looks.
All right, you guys, we are heading towards the dock. On behalf of Jay and myself, we'd like to thank you so much for joining us on this gorgeous afternoon. Did you guys have a good time?
Yeah.
Excellent. So I still have some quick things to do. I have some lines and fenders to bring to the very back corner of the boat. So if you see me coming your way, that's what I'm up to. I'm also going to be outside the lifelines, so please don't knock me overboard. But far more important than my safety, I do have this cute little wicker tip basket. Gonna put it right there by the gate. We do survive off the kindness of your gratuity, so if you would like to leave something in the basket for your captain and for your crew/tour guide, we are always greatly, greatly appreciative. And last but certainly not least, you guys, if you still have questions, comments, concerns, we would still love to hear them. Just write them on the back of a 20 and then put them in this basket. Thank you so much for joining us, you guys. Enjoy the rest of this gorgeous afternoon. Thanks for cooling down with a RumRunner 2. We'll have you at the dock very shortly.